the amount of times you have to contact somebody, or you have to reach out to somebody, you have to ask somebody before you get a response has now increased. When the tide goes out, you realize who's been swimming naked, or you realize who's been swimming with no clothes on. Everyone's pretending that everything's okay, but actually when a recession hits or when trouble hits, that's actually when you suddenly realize who has just been spinning their wheels and who actually has been really making the money.
Richard Teideman.
I've just spent a huge amount of money buying a business at a moment when there's an unprecedented drop in the market. So I learned a thing or two during that season, and it can be incredibly hard. And I think that right now, a lot of people are pretending that things are okay. So I'm picking up things where some companies I'm dealing with are very open. They're saying, we're finding this really tough. And then other people are saying, no, we are really badly struggling. And then other people are saying, no, everything's just fine, But I think that what's happened is the government has created this bizarre world that we're sitting in at the moment. And this is where it's unprecedented. The government has flooded the country with cash. So if you walk past that branch of Debenhams, or you walk past that branch of Oaxaca or whatever restaurant it is, and that thing is closed. Right now, the government is personally writing money out in order to keep that thing alive. So I think that probably what's going to happen is that give it 2 quarters, and all of a sudden you're going to begin to see the winners and the losers in this particular situation. And that's where I think some people are just going to have to fold their businesses. I don't know if you know, but there's a whole load of businesses that are already going bust. So I mentioned Debenhams, they've gone bust. Carluccio's, the restaurant chain, they went into administration. Do you have a shopping center near you? Into shopping centers, they were going bust before this hit. Now I think probably they'll go bust. So it's very interesting to see really the reality of that phrase that Warren Buffett, who I mentioned in my presentation, said. He said, when the tide goes out, you realize who's been swimming naked, or you realize who's been swimming with no clothes on. What did he mean? He means that basically everyone's pretending that everything's okay, but actually when a recession hits or when trouble hits, that's actually when you suddenly realize who has just been spinning their wheels and who actually has been really making the money. So it's a very challenging time. It can be very stressful. And really, I think the trick is to, at all costs, preserve your cash. At all costs, if you need to sell stuff, just get a cash pile. I actually sold some shares I had today because I think the market is now, the NASDAQ hit its highest ever point yesterday. How can this be? The biggest unemployment record in America in recent years since the Great Depression, and yet the NASDAQ is hitting its highest point. Well, there's a disconnect here. Some of the online companies are doing very well out of this, and the NASDAQ is an online companies kind of thing. But in the same way, there's going to be a lot of people who are just using government funds at the moment to keep their companies alive. So I would say give it 2 quarters, and we'll really begin to see some value opportunities. Those of you who are in real estate, I've been thinking about this. You might know more than I do, but the way I see it is it possible that people who are on a mortgage holiday at the moment for the next 3 months, all of a sudden their mortgage has to come for payment again? They haven't got the salary that they previously had. They're going to be having problems meeting their mortgage payments. So it's possible that the property market will take a dip. So those of you who have been looking for value opportunities, I would say it's more than likely that there will be a lot of people who won't be able to afford their properties anymore. And so therefore, it'll be a good buying opportunity. Sorry, Erin, I can't hear you now. I think you're on mute. So When I see this particular sort of dip that's going to take place, and it is kind of taking place, but the government has kind of inflated it. What I do is I wait till I think there is a bottom, and then I will buy something. So that's the point at which I will be looking for things that previously I wanted to buy, but they were overpriced. And actually that's the point at which, for example, you might move in on, if you're trading in shares, you might move in on a share, or if you're looking at buying a property, you might want to wait for that point and buy. But the trick is this: hopefully you've had your eye on buying something and you've been watching it for a long time. And the point is, when you decide that that thing is cheap, bet big, go in on it big at that particular point, because chances are it will come back again. So yeah, I definitely would say that we are going to have some very interesting buying opportunities up ahead. I would also say that one thing that's been working for me really well is actually just sowing goodwill with people. So I had a call with a guy today and I just said, listen, I've got no agenda here. I just want to see how you're doing, and so just tell me how things really are. And he's actually someone who I'd like to have as a client long-term. And it was a real kind of human connection. So I think a lot of people benefit from that human connection at the moment. And thirdly, I'm looking for people who are really struggling. So I'm connected with a couple of third world projects, and I'm messaging them and saying, who doesn't have food? Who actually is in lockdown, and are there children who actually can't eat at the moment? And I'm sowing into that particular area. So the absolute destitute and those people who are really having major problems, I'm sowing into that area as well. So I guess I'm taking a sort of a multi-pronged attack, really. The first one is, it will come back. And actually, since I made the video, I forget when that was now, I must have made that video maybe 4 weeks ago, something like that, and we were at bottom. It has come back. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I reckon in 2 quarters, we're going to see some serious cool buying opportunities. So if you do have cash, we don't really know what's going to happen. It could correct again. So it's gone up, it could correct again, and then it will go up for a while, and then it will correct again. We just don't know. In the travel industry, if you have been looking to get into the travel industry, it could be a couple of quarters, and there'll be some very, very valuable sort of opportunities there. So you could look at that. At the moment, of course, no one's making any money in the travel industry. So I think these are very beneficial things to kind of look out for. Where there is weakness or where there is particular challenges actually are the point of opportunity. So they say, when everyone else is fearful, you act bold and you act courageously. And when everyone else is being courageous and bold, you act fearful. And if you do the opposite to what is you logically would think is the best thing to do, then that can reap really, really good dividends in the future. Back in 2008, when I ended up with this company and the crash, I decided to take a number of steps. The first one was I networked my way out. So we can't do that right now in the way we used to because of lockdown. But I literally went out to make a policy to meet more people than I had ever met before. So right now, maybe you could do a much more concerted LinkedIn reach out. Start reaching out to people. Don't just say, I want to connect with you. Actually give them some degree of value. Hi, I've been looking at your profile. I think there might be some interesting opportunities here. I would love to talk to you a little bit more about you. And then you find out about them, and then you can give them a proposition. That's the best thing to do. People always like kind of, building that bond of trust first before they do it. So maybe more LinkedIn reach outs than you've ever done before. Those of you who are looking for jobs, now is the time to reach out to the recruiters, because the recruiters are going to expect there to be a great surge in employment coming up in the future. So you can get your profile right, you can get your CV right, your resume right, and then you can start hitting up those recruiters and saying, look, I should imagine the time is going to come when people are going to want to recruit again. I just want you to remember me, and make some friends with those people as well. So I networked my way heavily. And then the second thing was I sold more than I had ever done before. So if you have a specific thing that you are selling, now's the time to get it absolutely perfect. Get your little pitch right, get your elevator pitch right, get your proposition right, get your deck right, and then start talking to people, start asking people, hi, I just want to connect with you. Hi, I just had to reach out to you. Would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? What are the products that you have got that are the highest margin products? What are the ones that are going to create the most cash for the least effort? They're the ones you need to focus on. Now is not the time to be selling low margin products unless you've got something really special going on. How can you give people something for free? How can you bundle your offer to give them some degree of comfort? What about your competitors? What about the guys who, they're your frenemies in a way? Maybe they're struggling more than you are. So maybe now is the time to start reaching out to their customers, because if they're struggling and they can't service their customers, it is your duty to try and get their customers so that you can service them instead. So I think definitely begin to look at the competition and just see quite what the opportunities are there. So I would say you should do more LinkedIn connections than ever before. Those of you who are looking for jobs, you should definitely reach out to the recruiters right now. All the recruiters are positioning themselves for a big surge as people start recruiting again. Those of you who are in industries that are struggling at the moment, or you're looking to get into an industry that was struggling, maybe you're thinking, I've always fancied starting up that restaurant chain or something. Let me tell you, there's going to be a lot of very cheap restaurant real estate around. There's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff as a lot of these previous companies check out. Those of you who are in businesses where you need to specifically pitch people all of the time, well, now's the time to increase that opportunity to pitch. So I particularly like what Aaron's done, where he's given to such a large amount of people. He's reached out to people and created a community. And then also he's invited people to come in if you need help. I think this is a great thing to do. So you create communities. And I think the future is going to be creating communities online. I would also say, and here's an interesting one, it might be that you have a number of sort of business meetings that aren't necessarily commercially sensitive, but they're just interesting meetings. And you can actually publicize those and say, hi, I'm going to be talking to, Mr. or Mrs. X or Y today, and I'm going to be catching up with them about their business. But I'm going to put this open to people on Zoom so people can watch. I'm beginning to see a lot more people being very open about the way they're doing business. And you can create a community by watching other people do business, which is quite an interesting thing to do. So if you can increase your cash in any way you can, I would definitely say that you should do that. If you're coming up to, say, a rent review or something like that, it's possible that your landlord is really struggling, and it's possible that they might take a much better deal, or you can just move to somebody else. It's a really good idea to ruthlessly slash your costs and negotiate any fixed costs down. And also to have a ruthless, cold, hard look at anything in your business that has just been hemorrhaging you money. If there is a particular thing that has cost you a lot of money and it hasn't given you a return, it's a really good idea at this particular point to actually cut that thing and just trim everything back to the bone. It will grow again and it will come back again, but right now, the most important thing is survival. But then also start asking, give people practical, easy ways to understand what you're selling, and how to buy it simply and easily. So if there is a way in which people can buy your products online in 2 clicks, in 3 clicks, in 1 click, if there is a way in which people can subscribe for free, or you give them something for free, these are very, very powerful ways in which you can connect with people right now, because nearly all of non-traditional business has now suddenly gone online. It's forced us online, I think. I'm also seeing, on a much more kind of deep level, I'm very interested now in some of the digital currencies that are coming up in countries. So, for example, the European Central Bank has just announced they're going to have a digital currency. And also America have said that they might digitize their currency. So I think we are beginning to see the more mainstream acceptance of digital currencies. Might not be Bitcoin, might not be Ethereum and all the standard ones right now. It might not be Facebook's coin. But if the American government suddenly issue their own digital currency, well, that's going to be a very interesting thing. And this is unprecedented. This is not something that happens very often. So I think this is a very, very interesting opportunity as well. So just in summary, before I hand back to Aaron, I would say definitely target yourself and have a rigid schedule. I'm letting all of my metrics talk. I'm letting all of my data talk. And the things that are showing positivity, I'm focusing in on those. The things that are showing a positive outcome, I'm focusing in on those. Reach out to a certain number of people every single day. Send out maybe a certain amount of emails every single day. Learn a new skill. I've actually kind of overcooked myself, and I've taught myself too many things. And so I'm having to kind of cut back on the skills which I got. And also help somebody else today as well. Help somebody else to survive and sow into somebody else's life. And the things you sow right now, I'm sure, are going to come back to you. So thank you so much, Aaron.
What would you say are the 1, 2, 3 maybe key things that you're learning in this season as an entrepreneur?
What am I learning as an entrepreneur right now? I'm learning that data-driven strategies are going to be the strategies of the future. So the more that you can track what's going on, the more that you can track where things are happening, I would say that is definitely one of the most powerful ways to reach out to people. So if you've got any form of metrics, you've got any form of, say you've got a Shopify, account or some kind of a store, use those analytics to their fullest extent, which is very useful because people's behaviors are changing. I would definitely say that. I would say secondly, I think the second thing I'm learning is the amount of times you have to contact somebody, or you have to reach out to somebody, you have to ask somebody before you get a response has now increased. So say 10 years ago, you could talk to somebody 3 times and you get a response. Say 5 years ago, it was 5 times. Now you might have to talk to somebody 10 times or 12 times before that relationship is built. And I think that's partly because of the fact we're doing everything digitally. And I think the third thing I'm learning is that there are some industries that are just going to come out of this so strong. Pharmaceutical industries, most online industries, the big guys are going to come out really, really strong. And also, if you manage to pick the bottom of the real estate market, you could be sitting on some really nice investments, I'd say, in years to come.
Oh, nice. Thanks for sharing. So that's pretty much. So one of the things, and just talking about data, one of the things that has really helped us, especially even coming out of the thriving through crisis, is we pretty much can tell how many people came to the summit. This particular Facebook group used to be just 85 people before we started the summit, and we've seen it grow in that 10 days from 85 people to over 1,000 people. So definitely that's what you've just alluded to in terms of data. And just even right now with the activity and the value we're adding, I'm seeing that a lot more people are still trying to come into into this group. So that definitely, and obviously, and there's a back end. So typically I would have jumped on a call like this and say, hey, everybody, I'm doing a call, and just send a WhatsApp message. But now we're very intentional about getting people to actually sign up behind at the back end, because then we can actually track who signed up to attend this. It's either you are in the group already or you've actually signed up to. So definitely I submit to what you just said there. Now, I wrote this earlier. Now, based on your comments earlier on, you showed us a graph showing the cycles of the stock market going back to the 80s. Do you think we're in a completely new era at the moment? And are we going to see a complete evolution of the business world? Or do you think things will go back to normal, in your opinion?
Well,
is it a cycle?
It will definitely come back. I mean, it's come back even from when we began to prepare for the summit. It's come back. But I think that what's come back is actually artificially inflated at the moment because of government money. It's when the government stops that money, that's when we're going to see some real major swings. And that's what makes this a unique moment, because I can't think back in economic history at a time when literally the government just stopped the clock on commerce and just went, guys, stay at home, we're going to pay for everything. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on. It's just incredible. And so as furlough begins to stop and as the government loans begin to stop, I think that's when really none of us really know what's going to happen. But I think what we can predict is that there are going to be some major winners and some major losers. I really liked what you were saying about how you've increased your numbers so much, because I think that the conferencing, we already know the conferencing industry is being turned on its head right now. What we're doing right now, to have this many people on a live chat would have been unthinkable 5-6 years ago. Yeah. And actually, you can run one of your major conferences, and I know you run some really big conferences, just so quickly now. It's just unbelievable. And actually what I do is I record some of the ones I can't make, and then I watch them later, or I watch the replays. So this is a really, really, really exciting time for that. I think I think there's definitely a place where we can be innovators in how conferencing and virtual meetings are going to take place. I don't think we've even begun here. We're kind of making it up as we go along,
Yep. All right, thank you for that. Now, so we've seen a lot of people lose their jobs as a result of COVID and just the way where the economy is at the moment, the recession, people are being furloughed. So what would you tell people? And so many of us are watching. There's so many people here who depend on a career, who have to do a 9 to 5. And then there's for their livelihood. And we've also got business people. So we've got career people versus business people. Where do you think there's an upper hand at the moment? Who would you advise the business people to go get a job? Would you advise the career people right now to try and create a business? Where do you think there could be some hope?
I think it's essential that all of us try as hard as we can to have multiple streams of income. I don't think that any of us can really rely on one stream of income, unless you've got a really, really, really high-flying career. That means that if, for example, you've been in a bank for 30 years, and if they ever get rid of you, they're going to give you a huge parachute payment, and you know that, then I don't think any of us can really afford that anymore. I mean, my late father, he retired at 65 with a full pension. So literally, he was being paid his full salary for the rest of his life. Those days are gone. So personally, I mean, my target is to create for myself 6 or 7 streams of income. It takes a long time to do that, but actually, as I sold out and ended a few business interests a few years ago, I lost some streams of income, and so now I'm building them back up again. And it takes time to do that, but we can do, none of these things happen overnight. I personally think that there is a real thing to be said for beginning something and just staying with it over an extremely long period of time. If you can ride out all of the dips and all of the troughs and all of the pandemic issues and this sort of stuff, and you can just consistently do what you're doing over 10 years, over 15 years, over 20 years, and you manage your risk, then actually you will ultimately grow a really big business unless something really serious happens. And it's actually staying in a business for the long haul that we don't really think of so much anymore, because we're always hearing about this guy started a company, raised this much money and sold within 4 years and this kind of stuff. But actually, what about building businesses for life? What about building, income for life? And the ways to do that. How can we do that? How can we create residual income and increase that income stack? So I definitely think with career people, there's always an opportunity to do something on the side. And with people who are entrepreneurs, there's always an opportunity to create another stream of income, So, and it can be fun.
So let's just stay. I'm going to read a few of the questions. Let's just stay on streams of income for a bit. So there's this school of thought that, and I had this over the last 1 week, there's a school of thought that says the best way to build streams of income is by actually staying focused, building a stream first, and making sure that stream runs very well before you now begin to diversify into other streams. What's your experience in this, and what will be your thoughts around how anyone who's listening right now, because a lot of people, and I was still talking to someone this morning, a lot of people, everyone's saying we need to have multiple streams of income, but you just see many people just burning out, not actually mastering anything. It will be good to get your take as to the best way and how you would advise that people actually begin to build multiple streams of income.
This is a real weak spot of mine and something I've always found, and that is that I have a very short attention span. So I struggle to concentrate on one thing and do it like over a period of time. But what's working for me right now is that I love creating new things, and I love learning new skills, and I love challenging myself to do something I haven't done before. So what I do is I've got my main business going on, and I discipline myself to do that. I'll get at this desk and I will target myself to do everything I possibly can until I hit a point. Maybe my unproductive point is like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just like, I just can't work this hard anymore. And that's the point at which I do soft stuff. So maybe it's different for you, but I would do like some administration, I do some invoicing or something. And then in the evening, I do all my calls. And then of a weekend, I am building another business stream. So the weekends, that's my spare time. That's like my fun recreational time. So I'm recording some things at the moment, and I'm doing this at the moment. That's maybe when you're doing your music business, if it's on the side or whatever it is, and so that's where, if you turn it into something you love and recreational, I think you can probably do 2 at a time. Any more than that, it starts to get a little tricky unless you start to delegate it.
Well, that's an amazing strategy right there. So how does one actually become an entrepreneur?
It's as simple as buying and selling something for yourself repeatedly. So, for example, if we started to sell something on eBay, we started to get some old furniture from the Free Cycle group locally. You make it look good, you paint it, you start selling that on eBay. You've already become an entrepreneur because you've started a business. So anyone can do that. Even if you're in a full-time job, you can do that. There are always things which you can take, you can recycle them, and you can sell them on. I'll just tell you a real quick story. When I was down at, I was taking a cycle ride the other weekend, and there was a guy, and he'd got out of a Ferrari. And I just joked and said, that's a really nice car. But I said, is it really suitable for lockdown? And we're just having a laugh. And he made his money in getting secondhand clothes from jumble sales and that kind of stuff. And he sells them to charities, and he sells them to the third world. And he had made enough money out of using, stuff that you and I would be throwing out. And actually he made enough money. Now he's got like a Ferrari. So, what other people regard as not valuable, you can still make a lot of money off you.
Let me just read some of the questions, then let me just scroll through. So someone says, as a startup, is it a problem to have a plan B? An advisor says to grow a startup, you need to concentrate on one thing. So what are your thoughts on plan Bs?
I think if you're starting up, you need to, number one, be super risk averse. So if you don't need to spend it, don't spend it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, normally starting something up, you have to create so much energy and so much focus into something to get it moving. So to give you an example, I refuse personally to subscribe to all of these customer relationship management systems. I'm just using Excel. Or I'll use like a pen and paper. I refuse to subscribe to really expensive software platforms when I can do the thing the same way. I heard the story about the founders of Lidl. Those guys were so frugal at the beginning of starting that business all those years ago that they used to get pencils and they would snap them in half and then sharpen both ends. So they got two pencils for the price of one.
That is so funny, but that's so smart, though.
and actually, the principle of Lidl was born on the fact that they were like, well, why refrigerate anything? Why pay for shelves? Why don't we just get pallets of the food in and then people can just grab it and stick it in? So they cut down on all of the costs and they just did it on a minimal level. And look at it now. Look at it.
Wow. Wow. Someone else has asked, do you think that working from home would now be more as a result of what's happening now? Would employers now prefer that method as it reduces cost of renting offices?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Let me look for another question quickly. So when you were talking about client contact, someone is asking, should the 10 times you contact your clients be a connecting sort of, I guess it's a mixture of messages, hellos and sales? What would you say should be that strategy? Is it just hello until a client get in touch? Or sometimes, like I subscribe, is just actually just checking people, how are you doing? And then if it leads to a sale, it leads to a sale. What are your thoughts on that?
So I can give you my own personal experience, because on LinkedIn every day I get just a mountain of people contacting me trying to sell me things, and actually I filter through them at the end of the day, and there are only maybe one or two that really resonate with me. I actually took a call with somebody just because they approached me in the right way, completely cold the other day, which is unusual for me. So I'll tell you some of my experiences and things I hate and the things I don't like, things I love. Okay. So if someone just says, I'd like to connect with you, or they just use that standard greet, I'll filter through, and if I don't know them, I will just discard them. Whereas if they say, yeah, Richard, I see you're doing this, or I've noticed this, so therefore I'd like to connect with you, now I'm beginning to get interested. I get contacted a lot by people who say, if you need digital services, or you need like a branding agency, or you need advertising services, I'd like to connect with you. Well, those people clearly haven't read my background, because I used to run an advertising agency. Why would I want to hire another one? I know how that works. So I think you need to be informed. And I think the second thing is you need to get to the point. So, you need to add value. So what works for me is I'll reach out, I'll say, hi there, I'm currently looking for such and such. You appear like somebody who I might be able to get some advice from. I'd like to connect with you. Then once they connect, to say, thank you so much. I'd love to grab a call. It doesn't need to be scheduled. Here's my number. Do you mind if I call you? And if they don't reply to me, then I'll say, well, thanks very much. I'll stay in touch and I'll email you some details. Do you have an email address? If I don't get anything from that, we're done. And they can just go on my list.
It's a mixture of different strategies, basically.
Yeah, that's right. And to give them value, send me something interesting. Send me a report or something that I can read. That's always fun.
All right. So someone is asking, what are your thoughts on the government flooding the economy with loans to businesses? I'm just holding, I think my connection is a bit dodgy. All right. Someone is asking, what are your thoughts on the government flooding the economy with loans to businesses that could potentially fold up? Could this lead to high taxes and recession? it's not far off from the 2008 recession caused by excessive borrowing and what became toxic mortgages and defaults. Are there similarities?
Yes, there are a lot. So, I mean, I would think there's a lot of, this particular bounce back loan is basically free money. I mean, I've never seen like an offer quite like it. You're going to get a loan from the government where you don't have to pay any money, any interest or any of it for a year. And then you've got another 6 years to pay it off at 2%. That's pretty good money. But I've always tried to stay away from debt in business. If you possibly can, just stay away from debt, stay away from loans, stay away from being over leveraged. I'd say that's the first thing. I think the second thing is, I think it's crazy. The whole thing about capitalism is that sooner or later there's a correction and the winners win and the losers should lose, and then everyone comes back again. And so every time we had this, when we had this in 2008, what happened? All the banks were going to fail. They were frightened about rioting on the streets, so they flooded the economy with money. And every time they do this, they're creating a virtual reality so the crashes are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until in the end we're going to have a major financial problem. But that's another thing. So what I would say is that I think that it will sooner or later the music will stop and we will see this correction at some point or another. That's what I think. I mean, I can't believe that we're just going to coast out of this singing and dancing and everything is going to be normal. Interest rates are going to have to go up because sooner or later someone's going to have to underwrite this huge bill that the government's racking up. So if you're going to, I just fixed my mortgage because I cannot see that it can get any lower. It can only go up. I remember in 89, 91, when interest rates for mortgages were 14%. 14%. Yeah. You imagine how much your mortgage payment would be if you've got a mortgage, if it was 14%. So, what goes up comes down, what goes down comes up.
I'm just taking some notes with some of the things you're saying. I'm going to have to go fix my mortgage.
It's only because I'm so old. I remember these things. I'm 52 years old, I remember it so clearly. People were just defaulting on their mortgages in 91. The whole thing just collapsed. The property market was insane,
Right. Someone is asking about partnership. What are your thoughts on partnership? Is it a good to have or nice to have?
I've had good and bad experiences with partnerships. Maybe I'm just a really tough person to work with. It could just be me. I think partnership is a wonderful thing. I think it's absolutely essential. If you possibly can, it's very, very hard to run a business on your own. I think you should generally try and find somebody who's a lot cleverer than you and different to you. And go in very, very, very slowly. Ask yourself, who is this person really? What is their previous track record? We could do a whole seminar on this. What is their track record previously? Are they a winner or are they a loser? Are they complementing my skills? Like if I'm an introvert, are they an extrovert? If I'm a salesperson, are they a good accountant? Are they good with money? How are they handling their own personal finances? This kind of stuff. Look at their life. And then the second thing I would say is never go into a 50-50 partnership. That's my experience. I was in one back in 2004. We had a disagreement and neither of us could vote the other one out. We were locked. Wow. And that caused me a year in court. So I would say you always need, it's a good idea to have a third person who's got 1% or something like that, who can just vote either way between the two, just to get you out of that lock. So you need to beware of deadlocks. And if you're going to enter into a partnership with someone, do have a legal agreement between you. Do have a legal agreement. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It doesn't matter even if you've just written it out yourselves and both signed it. Just stick it in the bottom drawer so that if anything ever goes wrong, you've got some way of getting yourself out.
Good stuff. That's some valuable stuff. So typically what I do, which you're aware of in coaching, I'm big on mindsets. And one of the things I learned from you when we went in December, when you came to the Rejuvenate retreat. And definitely, I think we're bringing you back again this year to the retreat to spend more time with you. You talk to us about mindset. What do you think is the mindset one needs to have as an entrepreneur? Give us a bit of an insight into the mindset of an entrepreneur.
So there are some things which have not worked for me. So I can save you a lot of heartache if you're just beginning on this journey. So, for example, positive thinking has a benefit, but it actually can short circuit your brain into thinking you've done it. And so you get the reward, but you don't necessarily get the kind of the you get the mental reward, but you don't get the process. So it's not necessarily the best idea to have positive thinking without being realistic as well. The second thing is that beware YouTube, because the YouTube.
You say beware of YouTube.
Don't get me wrong. I love YouTube. I love YouTube. But let me tell you that algorithm will get you, because what it does is if you want to learn something through YouTube, you can get a psychological effect whereby you're watching videos of people doing things.
Yeah.
And in fact, your brain thinks you've done it, whereas you haven't done it at all. So I would say however much time you spend learning something on YouTube, do 50% of the time doing it.
Doing the work,
you're a doer, not just a watcher. I would say that's really important.
Yeah. I mean that alludes to a lot of things I teach. So with my clients, I'm constantly telling them it's not about the thing, it's the process. It's the process. It's not about having something. It's who you become in the process. And I think that's that missing link. So everyone just wants you want to do the marathon. You want to do, but it's actually about the discipline you're becoming in the process, the committed person you're becoming in the process. So you have to really appreciate and enjoy the process more than the event itself. So I think, that's so great, because what happens is a lot of us are so fixated on the event instead of actually enjoying the journey and who you become in the process. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So, funny question, really. When I watched the presentation again this morning, it's so clear to see how much you love Warren Buffett. What are the things you've learned from Warren Buffett apart from obviously his billions?
I tell you what I learned from Warren Buffett. He has a business partner.
Oh, nice.
And here's a good read for you, right? So his business partner is called Charlie Munger. And Charlie Munger, he's just the craziest looking dude you've ever seen in your life. He's got these like jam jar glasses. And, the two of those, they are both multi-billionaires. And if you look at their partnership, you have got something pretty powerful there. So Charlie Munger, what would I say about Charlie Munger? He's super logical. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's written some really cool books. So there's a book he wrote called, here's a good book for you. There's a book that Charlie Munger wrote called Poor Charlie's Almanac. That's a real tome right there. If you're going to read any book, read a billionaire's book. That's the way to do it. He wrote that thing himself, And the thing about these dudes are, they live extremely frugal lifestyles. So Warren Buffett, I could guarantee you he's wearing a suit from Primark or something like that. He lives you can Google his house. He lives in this little house. He's a billionaire, He's not giving it all of like the Instagram Ferraris and mansions and stuff. He has a little house. He goes and eats burger every lunchtime. He reads the papers and he waits for buying opportunities. That's the lifestyle of someone who has ridden out a lot of financial recessions. Yeah.
Good stuff. I'll probably listen to the recording. No, actually, if you send me a text with the WhatsApp with the book, so we can also share with people.
I think you can get that one for free. I think you can get that one on free download, that book. So.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's nice. So how do we, in this season, do you have more ideas around? So you've definitely talked about trying to possibly get rental down, mortgages fixed. So what other cutting advice would you give people who are listening and watching at this time, where they can cut costs and in this season?
I would say be ruthless. I would say if you can, and you can sell something to create a cash pile, in the next, you might want to consider doing that. So so to give you an example, if you were thinking, if you own a property and you were thinking of moving to somewhere else, now's the time to begin to think about selling it, because it's possible, and I'm not saying it is, don't hold me to this, there'll be a crash and then you can buy something better for less. I would say that there's a strong possibility of that.
So that way you kind of have access to the cash to be able to do that kind of thing, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that principle can be applied to anything right now. Just create a cash pile and wait for a dip.
Okay. So have you got what more ideas? Well, I like that. Create a cash pile. Interesting. What more? So someone doesn't have a property right now. How could they potentially also try and find a way to create a cash pile?
Let me just say something else first, actually, just in answer to your previous question. Well, one thing that's been happening to me over the past few months is I've been having people ring me a lot and they say, Richard, I've got this idea for COVID. Richard, I've got this idea for a COVID app. Richard, I've got an idea for this. I've got an idea for this. I see a difference, and I'm not criticizing those people. I mean, thank God for people who have done business in COVID, right? Thank God for that. So I'm very thankful for that. But I see a difference between opportunism and entrepreneurialism. So here's the difference. An opportunist sees a situation that is happening right now and tries to capitalize upon it. What an entrepreneur does is they try and predict the future and then build a business that will capitalize upon that future. So notice that most of what we've been talking about tonight has been about what might happen in the future, like how you might get a better property in the future, how you might get a better business in the future. Whereas what an opportunist does is they react to kind of BBC News. And I would say that the weaker thing to do is to try and react to the now, because now is changing all of the time. So it's very, very hard. So actually a friend of mine who built a COVID app, he was like calling me a month and a half ago about a COVID app. Well, what happened? The government brought out a COVID app. So his idea is just not going to happen.
Wow. Yeah.
So there's opportunism and entrepreneurialism, and I would say avoid opportunism.
Wow. Avoid opportunism. Right. We're pretty much coming to the end of this. Two or three questions, or maybe I should ask the fate question at the end. So I believe it is about 7 businesses you've created. From when I last checked, you've created about 7 businesses at least. What drives you, and what do you do? How do you just wake up and say, I'm creating a new business this year? What's your why with regards to creating businesses and successful businesses at that?
So I think that all of business is sowing and reaping, and you sow seeds and you don't know which one's going to come up. So, if you sow in your garden a whole load of seeds, you can bet money that one of them is going to come up and it's not going to come up. So the best businesses are born out of a sale or a business opportunity that has occurred in your life. I have tried to start businesses with ideas and generally failed. So normally it's something that you're already doing. So say you're already selling makeup brushes, and say all of a sudden you're able to sell more makeup brushes than you've ever done before. That deal is the seed to a whole business. Whereas actually to just begin from scratch, trying to push an idea, that's never really worked for me. So normally it is who you know and what people are buying off you already that is the seeds to your next business. Yeah.
Wow. Could you just I really love that. If you could just emphasize that, because one of the things about entrepreneurs, we always try to put our hands into different piles. While it's actually about what you're talking about is scaling up what you actually do very well. Yeah. And that leads you to the next thing. Could you just give a bit more thought of your wisdom around that, just to help people? Because a lot of the people, especially in my community, we're constantly looking at what every other person is doing to try and jump into something else, instead of actually solidifying on what we're doing and be the best at that. That then opens up opportunities to go into other things.
I think it's because really the best business is about an extension of you. You know, like you're so genuine. You just come across as who you are. You know, there's no pretense. You're not trying to put something on or anything like that. Your business has become like an extension of who you are. And so whatever you are buying or whatever you are selling is an extension of who you are. So if you can take that and you can multiply it and magnify it and actually concentrate on that thing, then really ultimately you're doing something you love. Whereas if I can see the way other people make money and I can think, well, that's a great way to make money. Let me try and copy that. But it's not really coming from me. Yeah. It's a facsimile, you know.
Wow, this is gold. Just that bit is so much gold, so much gold. I need to listen to this again and again. So what would you do differently in business, knowing what you now know?
I would not go into business with people as quickly. Okay. So I would not enter into business partnerships as quickly as I had. And I would not look for any of the trappings of successful businesses. I would not have had the huge West One agency office that I was locked into. I would not have had the really expensive desks. I would not have had the most expensive computer. I would not have had the huge payroll. I would have kept the whole thing in a tiny little place, probably even my home, with as few people as possible and as few liabilities as possible, but the maximum opportunity. So I would have kept it lean, down, and dirty. I would have broken those pencils in two and sharpened them at either end.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. One of the things that drew me to you when we met was also the place of your faith. And we're not going to let people know how wealthy you are right now and things like that. But how have you managed being a good Christian that you are? I just wish people knew you. The Christian you are, the businessman you are. How do you marry your faith and your business?
Okay, well, first of all, I think good and Christian are not two words that go together for me.
You're a Christian, right?
Yeah, without getting theological, one, I'm not good, and two, I'm not a good Christian, you know. So, but what I would say is this. I would say that that's a very good question. Man, that's a good question. I would say, you know, with my faith, I've been a Christian 41 years and I've read the Bible 21 times cover to cover. And I would say that my conclusion of God is that, number one, his mind is completely different to mine. So he is so other that he 100% understands you more than you understand yourself. And secondly, he is love. He is constitutionally and actively love. And so whenever you violate the law of love, and whenever you violate the law of truth, there is some distortion. And so that is why we're always back to genuineness. You know, if we can not be scared of what people think, if we can not be scared of reputation, and we can be true to ourselves and true to our hearts, you will always prosper. And the second thing is there's a difference between wealth and money. So
we lost you there for a second. I don't want to miss anything you said. The difference between
wealth and money.
And money, okay.
So to give you an example, in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, it says, when God gives a man the gift of wealth and possessions. Now, I see a complete difference between those two things. So possessions, I've had a lot of possessions, trust me. I've had Florida properties, I've had swimming pools, I've had the whole lot. And none of that is actually very pleasurable. It's just assets that cling to you. Whereas wealth is different. Wealth is those you love. Wealth is having people surrounding you you can have a meal with. Wealth is about wealth is about something other than possessions. You know, when I go to do the schools project in Uganda and I help out there, they have wealth because they have each other and they have so much joy I really do, and there's a difference between wealth and money. There's a difference between wealth and possessions. And in my experience, possessions and assets can make you very unhappy. And money is, the only thing that money does is it makes you feel safe. That's the thing, it makes you feel safe. But wealth is the most important thing.